Well, FreshBaked, I was not expecting to be recording the video that I'm about to record at this time on this day, but go ahead and file this one under things that make you go, I've been advised that we may be getting guidance for the reopening of theme parks in California very, very soon. I know we've heard that before, but what I mean to say is, as in like now, as I record this, it's 10:30 p.m. on a Wednesday evening, and they may be posted as early as tonight. They may be already posted by the time you watch this video in the morning. In fact, it's so urgent. Everything is kind of happening so quickly and so right now that I'm even wearing the same outfit that I wore earlier today for my video from this morning. It's been a long day and a lot has happened, but I'm happy to be able to at least possibly share possible good news. And even better, not only do we think that we'll be getting those guidelines tonight or in the morning, we've actually got those guidelines, and we're going to cover them right now. The guidelines were given to the IATSE, or the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. And then those were provided to us by a former cast member and friend of the show. So, without further ado, let's get into this, and we're going to start with the basics. Parks will be limited to 25% capacity, and this, who didn't see this coming? That's a no-brainer. Individual rides will be limited to 50% capacity and no indoor queuing. Now, we all know that Disney is famous for their amazing, brilliant, in-depth indoor queues. My assumption, though, is that this guideline is referenced to where you can stack guests, where you can actually queue the guests. Those have to be outdoors. You can still have access to those interior queues, the ones that we're known for, Rise of the Resistance, Indiana Jones. Guests will just simply have to walk straight through with no interruption. There will be no opportunity for those guests to accumulate. That seems hard, but with 25% capacity, probably not so much. They can keep those guests at bay somewhere outside, I would imagine. Some attractions are going to be a little bit more problematic than others. The aforementioned Indiana Jones, Rise of the Resistance, a large part of their queues are indoors, but I think there's enough space outdoors that they can accommodate this. Something like Star Tours, I think they might have a little bit more trouble with Star Tours because even their extended queue is also indoors. But in the end, though, I don't think that any attraction is not doable under those restrictions. Okay, next, face coverings will be required, obviously, but they will be honoring those who have exemptions, medical exemptions for face masks. But those guests who do have medical exemptions will be required to using the plastic face shield rather than the mask. So nobody's going to be out there, just freewheeling it out there. Everybody's going to have some kind of face protection or face guard. Okay, next, all tickets must be pre-sold. There will be no on-site sales. Standard. I assume this would be the case anyway. As for restaurants, whatever rules are already in place for restaurants today, depending on what tier you're in, those will be the same. They'll have the same requirements for restaurants in a theme park. Now, this next one might be a bit of a bummer for many of you, but it does look like they're going to keep things locals only for a little while. Guests will be required to live and show proof that they live within 120 miles of the park. That's not a lot. That's roughly a 2-hour drive if you're obeying a 60 miles per hour speed limit and nonstop. So that's how we measure things in California. I'm not sure how they do things where you're from, but we don't measure things in miles in California. We measure things in time. But 120 miles is not a lot. Basically, that's San Diego to the south, Santa Barbara to the north, maybe Indio to the east, although it's actually, Indio's a little less than 100 miles, but there's nothing past Indio, so it stops at Indio, and then maybe Barstow to the northeast. And again, Barstow's probably a little less, I think, than 120, but nothing past that either. Now, this I think is something of a new wrinkle to guidelines. I don't believe that Walt Disney World had anything like this at all. But having said that, I do think that this was kind of expected. We kind of felt like this might be a possibility, though I was not expecting it to be as restrictive as the 120-mile limit. That just seems really local. And you might be asking, well, for how long is that going to be? When do I get to come to the park? And the answer to that question may lie with the last guideline which may be even more restrictive than this one. And that is that the county must be in the yellow tier before any of this can happen. And for those of you who are playing at home, hearing the yellow tier may have just caused you to spit out your pumpkin spice latte. And that's because we're not close. To summarize the 4 tiers real quick. Purple is the worst tier. That's the get your act together tier. You guys are lousy with virus. And for what it's worth, that's Los Angeles right now. So Universal is going to have an even tougher road than Disneyland has. And that Disney is currently in the next tier, the red tier, which is better, obviously, but still, you're not doing great. You've got some work to do. Definite progress to be made. Orange is next, and that's when things start to get a little looser, a little less restrictive. Then finally, the yellow tier, which is the last tier, where things are mostly open. Well, that is to say, mostly open everywhere else except for theme parks, which are still stuck at the 25% capacity limits. And that's where things get dicey when trying to predict a reopening date. And that's because a county must be in its present tier, Disneyland, for example, in the red tier. They must be in that tier for at least 3 weeks before they can graduate to the next tier. You can't just jump, even if your stats say you're there, you can't just jump into the next tier. You have to stay there for 3 weeks and keep those numbers at those levels before you can get to the next tier. Orange County, Disneyland, has been in the red tier for 3 weeks, I believe, maybe more even. So even if we graduate to orange next week, that's the earliest it can happen. I think it's Monday or Tuesday that they do those measurements. Even if that happens, we still have to stay in orange for at least 3 weeks before we can move into yellow. Now you might say, well, that's great. 3 weeks seems easy. We were talking about 4, 6, 8 weeks, who knows? That seems like it's easy, but it's not. We've been stuck in the red tier for a little while now, and we thought we might be graduating to orange, but we didn't. So we've lost a week already. And it feels like just getting to orange feels pretty grim right now. Though, at the pace that Orange County is at, orange feels like a long shot even, a little bit. And like I said, that makes it difficult for Disneyland or any theme park to predict its opening date, to start planning for an opening. Now, let's say, though, if Orange County gets into orange as early as next week, then one might be able to have a little more comfort in saying, okay, we did it, we got here, and we know what we're doing now, and we can now improve those numbers. We've got 3 weeks to get, to get our numbers into the yellow range, so that when our 3 weeks are up in the orange tier, we're ready to go for the yellow tier. But if we get stuck, if we stay in red for another week or 2 weeks, then that makes it that much harder for us to imagine suddenly getting much better at handling the virus and getting into the orange and then into the yellow. I feel like if you're in red for 4 or 5 weeks, then you could probably expect 4 or 5 weeks in orange, probably. I don't know. That's just the way it feels. It just when I first heard the yellow thing, I laughed. I laughed out loud. I'm like, are you kidding me? We're never gonna. That just seems like we're never gonna get there. Forget it. Just call it. But otherwise, that's it, guys. Those are the guidelines. Kind of good news, bad news, if you ask me. Good news, we got what we asked for. We got the guidelines. Bad news is the guidelines are pretty tough, and it's not going to be easy sledding. It's not a direct flight. It's not a direct path to predicting or getting Disneyland reopened. And like I said, it's even worse for LA because they're still in purple. They've been in purple since we started, I think, right? I don't know how long we've been doing these tiers, but that's how long they've been in purple. Universal's they've got a long road ahead of them. They got a long road. I don't think they're going to be going 3 weeks into the 2 tiers next. I don't see that happening unless people are really desperate to go to theme parks and they're using these guidelines or find some way to use these guidelines as motivation to inspire the populace to do better to prevent the spread of the virus. Okay, I'll conclude with this. I'm pretty sure these are the real deal, but we won't know for sure until they're posted to the governor's website. But I do feel like these are the real deal, but it's possible that they're not. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Having said that, even if they're not, I don't think that the guidelines that we wind up getting can look that much different than what we've just posted. So this is where we're at. This is what the state's looking at right now. I believe. I believe this is what we're going to find tomorrow in the morning or the next day or something like that. So on that note, let us know, FreshBaked. Good, bad, ridiculous, easy. Where do you fall? How do you feel about these restrictions? Tell us in the comments below, and until next time, thank you again for watching Fresh Baked, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video, and then you can also follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked and on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney. That's fresh with no E. My DMs are always open. Feel free to contact me there to ask me any questions or to provide any heads up on some news that you may have heard. You can also email me at david@freshbakedisney.com. I have got a whole stack of emails waiting for me that I've been working on tonight. This is why I was able to stay up tonight to do this, because I was reading all the emails that you guys sent me today. It meant a lot hearing from so many of you the way you did, cast members especially. So if you want to ask me, you know, or if you want to update me on something, or if you have an important question, DM me on Twitter or email me. Otherwise, if you like our show and want to show your support, please consider joining our Patreon campaign. We're at patreon.com/freshbaked. And otherwise, that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Let's all do our part to make these guidelines a reality, to get us to opening as soon as possible at the lowest possible timeline. Wear your masks, wash your hands, do your part, and let's get there. Even if you don't believe, it helps us get the parks open. If that's something that you want, then let's do it. Let's make this happen. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Fresh Baked.
We've got lots more videos for you to see, so grab a churro and check out some of our other videos and have your mind blown by how much fun we're having. We truly are the best of Disney Bake Fresh Daily. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time. Fresh Baked!